In a time marked by constant conflict and external threats, the people of Israel faced great challenges. Among the Philistines, a particularly feared enemy struck terror across the nation. But before we meet the giant who would terrify the Israelite army, we must return to Bethlehem, a small town in the tribe of Judah, where the young David was born. Bethlehem was not only a place of gentle hills and fertile fields, it was a land of faith, tradition, and history, where the simplicity of daily life coexisted with a deep spiritual connection to God. David was the youngest of 8 sons of Jesse, a man respected for his honesty, devotion, and hard work. The family lived modestly, sustaining themselves through farming and shepherding, activities that required discipline, patience, and courage. From an early age, David stood out among his brothers, not only for being the youngest but also for his unique qualities: intelligence, sensitivity, natural courage, and above all, unwavering faith. His childhood was marked by constant contact with nature, learning to recognize weather signs, choosing the best pastures, and protecting his sheep from predators roaming the hills. He did not just see animals. David observed every detail of God's creation and found lessons of patience, strategy, and trust in these moments. His life in the fields was also a life of reflection, prayer, and learning, during which he meditated on God's role in protecting his people and his own life. David was not an ordinary boy. He possessed exceptional skills that naturally arose from his pastoral routine. Armed only with a sling and smooth stones from the stream, he faced lions and bears threatening his flock. Each encounter, though dangerous, strengthened his courage and reinforced his faith. Unlike many who resort to fear, David relied on the certainty that God guided every action. He understood that physical strength was limited and that true protection came from trusting divine guidance. Every animal he defeated was not only a practical victory, but also silent preparation for much greater challenges awaiting him. His family environment also helped shape David's character. Jesse, his father, was a simple yet wise man who taught his sons values such as honor, responsibility, and respect for God's law. David learned by observing his older brothers, who often were warriors or helped with military activities. But he devoted himself to caring for the sheep, taking on responsibilities that others considered tedious or dangerous. Humility and diligence molded his personality, preparing him to face challenges with courage, intelligence, and faith. He understood that carrying out his daily tasks with excellence reflected not only on his life, but also on his family's honor and the protection of the flock entrusted to him. As David grew, the political and military situation of Israel became increasingly tense. The Philistines, known for their strength and discipline, were constant enemies, invading territories, raiding villages, and imposing authority over God's people. Among them was a colossal warrior named Goliath, who terrified the Israelites daily. Standing over 9 feet tall, wearing full bronze armor, and carrying a gigantic spear, Goliath was not only physically imposing, but also strategic, instilling fear and despair in the Israelite army. For 40 days, he appeared before the troops, challenging any man of Israel to a one-on-one fight that would decide the army's fate. Yet no one, not even the most experienced soldiers, dared to accept the challenge. It was in this context that David entered the story of the battle. One day, his father asked him to take food to his older brothers, who were on the battlefield. Fulfilling the task, David observed the camp and heard Goliath's shouts, insulting and challenging the Israelite army. The young shepherd felt a deep indignation. It was not merely a physical challenge. Goliath was affronting God and dishonoring the chosen people. The courage David had cultivated in the fields manifested his righteous indignation. He asked the soldiers, "Why is no one facing this man? He is defying the army of the living God. Why does everyone retreat?" This attitude reflected his faith, sense of justice, and confidence that God would not abandon his people, even through a young boy. His brother, Eliab, seeing David's courage, tried to reprimand him, calling him reckless and accusing him of neglecting his responsibilities as a shepherd. But David responded firmly that he could not remain silent in the face of such defiance. He knew that, despite his youth and small stature, his trust in God was greater than any human fear. This determination quickly caught the attention of Saul, the king of Israel, who was desperate in the face of Goliath's threat. Saul heard about the young shepherd and decided to call him to the palace to understand his intentions. When David presented himself to Saul, the king initially doubted him. How could a simple shepherd face a fully armed, experienced giant? Saul tried to persuade him to give up, reminding him of his youth and lack of military experience. However, David explained clearly that his strength did not come only from physical skill, but from faith in God. He recounted his experiences fighting lions and bears while tending his flock, always trusting in divine protection, and assured Saul that God would deliver him again from danger. Impressed by the young man's faith, Saul finally allowed him to face Goliath, recognizing that David possessed courage, intelligence, and divine guidance. Before the battle, Saul tried to dress David in his own armor, but the young man realized he would not be able to move agilely. The armor was heavy and restricted his reflexes, which were essential for the fight. David chose to rely only on his sling and 5 smooth stones from the stream. Each stone symbolized his faith, patience, courage, and experience gained while caring for his sheep. With that, he approached the battlefield, aware that victory would depend more on trust in God than on weapons or physical strength. When Goliath saw David approaching, he mocked him, belittling his youth and size. "Am I a dog, that you come at me with sticks?" the giant said. But David responded with courage and firmness. "You come against me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied." These words were not merely a challenge. They expressed unwavering faith and certainty that God would guide every move and that this battle had a purpose far greater than mere physical victory. With great skill, David placed a stone in his sling, spun it rapidly, and released it with precision. The stone struck Goliath in the forehead, penetrating the armor and knocking the giant to the ground. Then David ran to him, took Goliath's own sword, and cut off his head, sealing the victory. The Philistine army, seeing their champion defeated, panicked and fled, while the Israelites, inspired by David's courage, pursued their enemies and achieved a historic victory. The young shepherd's feat proved that courage, faith, and determination can overcome even the greatest obstacles. David's victory over Goliath immediately became known among the Israelites. The young shepherd, armed only with a few stones and a sling, had defeated the giant who had terrorized the entire nation. His story stands as a powerful example of how faith and courage can overcome seemingly impossible challenges. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share it with your friends so more people can learn inspiring stories from the Bible.